Welcome back to Clay and Buck. As promised, we got our friend Steve Hilton on the line with us now. He is of Fox News fame, and he is running for governor of our biggest state by population, California. A lot of you are residents of that great state, which is poorly governed, but still a lovely place. Steve, good to have you on the program.
Oh, it's fantastic to be with you. And I've got a new claim to fame, okay, which is that Gavin Newsom just launched what he calls a fact-checking website to fight back against misinformation and the MAGA trolls. And guess who was his first target? Me. So I think I'm doing something right if he's focusing on me. And guess what? He focused on a point that I made about people leaving California. Said that is false. Our population is growing. And so, Clay, if I can just use a very simple, basic sports analogy, own goal, Gavin Newsom. Yes, our population is growing in California, but only because of illegal immigration. Actual people are leaving in droves because of the mismanagement, the taxes, the regulation, the insanity of Gavin Newsom and this 15 years of one-party rule by the Democrats.
All right, Steve, I want you to introduce, I know you've been on the show before. You had a great book that came out recently, but I want to give you an opportunity because there's tons of people listening right now in California. Also, as you just mentioned, a lot of people who used to live in California that are listening to us right now. You love the state of California. You grew up a huge fan of a beautiful state. What is your background and how have you come to end up running for governor of California?
People can hear, I still have the British accent. I was born and raised in the UK. My parents are Hungarian, actually. They were refugees from communism in Hungary. Most of my family's back in Hungary. And then in 2012, we moved here to California with my wife and my two sons. So I've raised my family here. I taught at Stanford University. I started a business here, all of that before joining Fox News. And in fact, just before moving here to California, I worked in the government in the UK. I was senior advisor to Prime Minister David Cameron, where I was really leading our domestic policy reform program. So I've worked in government, I've worked in the private sector, I've had this show on Fox News, I've just written a book about how California is the worst run state in America, but the good news is all of that is man-made. It's not a natural disaster. These are all decisions and policies implemented by Democrats. We can turn it all around as long as we vote for people who are going to bring change. And that's why I'm running for governor. It's very obvious what needs to be done here. It's just as the president says, it's just common sense. It's not complicated, but we just need to vote for change. Too many people, I think, have given up on California. They assume it's going to be like this forever. That is not the case. I've been on the road now nearly 3 weeks. Everywhere I go, you get this huge energy. People just sick and tired of the nonsense and really optimistic that now we got a candidate with the energy and the ideas to make a difference. And that's going to be me.
Steve, it would be, obviously there was another very successful and well-known immigrant to this country, legal immigrant to this country, who became the governor. So we all remember he was, I believe, a Republican at the time. So it is possible. We're a ways out from where you would get the opportunity to dethrone Newsomism, which, even though the Democrats would kick and scream about it, would be for their own good. But how do you run that gauntlet? I mean, what can you do in a state like California where, what is it, about 60-40 Democrat to Republican by registration, maybe a little more? How can you actually thread this needle and win? It has been done in the not too distant past. What would you have to do to make this a serious race and, not like there's some people that run for governor there as a vanity campaign? What are you going to do?
100%. Totally agree with that. And look, the starting point is that there are some ingredients that are grounds for optimism. So in the last election in November 2024, 10 counties in California flipped from blue to red, and including some significant ones like Fresno County. I'll be there later today. I'm in the Central Valley today with our great ag industry, which I'm a huge supporter of. Fresno County, Fresno's the 5th biggest city in California, flipped from blue to red along with 9 other counties. Huntington Beach, the biggest city in Orange County. That's where I launched my campaign a couple of weeks ago because it's so symbolic. Just 4 years ago, little over 4 years ago, the city council there was 6-1 Democrat. Now it's 7-0 Republican. Massive turnaround there, and was just rated the best run city in California. You look at the number of votes that President Trump got in California. That's more than enough to win in 2026, which is a midterm year where you tend to have lower voting turnout. So if all the Trump voters turn out in 2026, I will win. Now, of course, that's a big if, but it's something you can work on to persuade people that it's worth going out to vote. And then the final ingredient, and this is really where my focus is going to be, is just as you've seen across the country in the Trump years, this massive political realignment with Latinos and working class voters shifting from Democrat to Republican. That's our opportunity in California. Latinos are the largest group in California, 40% of the population, and the working class vote, which the Democrats have taken for granted, is right there for the taking now. I was in East LA on Monday, sitting down with working class Latino families, parents and business owners. They are sick of all the nonsense. They're the people hammered the most by these policies, the tax increases, the regulations, the climate extremism that tells you what kind of truck to drive and how to cook your food. They've had it with all of that stuff, the nonsense in the schools. So I think that's our opportunity, and I'm going to really go for it with that kind of populist message. I think that's the real heart of this. My show, the theme of my show was positive populism. I wrote a book a few years ago called Positive Populism. I think that's how we can pull this off in California.
What's the latest on the wildfires in the LA area, Pacific Palisades, Altadena, if I remember correctly, the neighborhoods that were most devastated? And how do you think that might have shaken people out of some of the entrenched politics that they might have embraced for a generation?
It's incredibly important because it is just an absolute symbol of everything that's wrong with California, because it's this combination of ideological extremism and governing incompetence, those two things together. The ideology is what led to the fact that these fires were so much worse than they need have been, because of the environmental extremism that said you can't clear brush, you can't manage your land properly. People were fined for trying to clear brush from their own property, all driven by their climate extremism. And then you see the incompetence, of course, the empty reservoir, the fire hydrants with no water, the fire department that was not deployed properly, on, right? And the reason that's so important, and now you see the incompetence totally exceeding even what we saw before. Karen Bass saying to President Trump to his face, yes, we're going to get on with it and issue permits for rebuilding and do it in record time. Still, I mean, a few weeks ago, it was 4 permits had been issued. Now I think it's up to the massive number of 30. It is an absolute joke, and it exposes how ridiculous these people are. So Karen Bass, a few weeks ago, she did a press conference where she announced, well, the post that she put out said, I have just signed an executive order streamlining permitting for rebuilding Los Angeles. If you actually look at what she said, it says, she said, I've just signed an executive order tasking agency heads with developing paths forward to streamlining permits. In other words, it's BS, because all you've got from these California politicians is these idiots who have no clue how to run anything. All they do is manage their way around the political machine. That's being exposed. And the reason it matters so much that it's in LA is because Los Angeles is the biggest county in California. 23% of the vote is LA County. So the fact that that's the place that's been so directly exposed to the disaster of Democrat rule is incredibly important, and another great ingredient for how we can win here.
Speaking to Steve Hilton, he has announced his candidacy for governor of California. I was wondering, Steve, because you would have an ear to the ground, so to speak, on how things are going with the opposition there, with the Democrats that you're going to try to unseat. The future of Kamala Harris in California politics. People talk about her still as possible governor. They talk about her still as possible presidential candidate. How do you see Kamala's future?
Well, just in terms of what I'm hearing, to take the first part of your question, what we're hearing from those close to her and reporters who follow her movements is that she's been told in no uncertain terms that there's really no support for her from the donors, from the Democrat machine, for another presidential run. That the support isn't there for that. So if she wants to do anything, it's going to be governor of California. I would welcome that, because when people ask me, well, how are you going to win as a Republican in California? Here's what I say. The truth is, we've got majorities in California now who say, for a long time, have been saying it's time for a change, state's going in the wrong direction, all of that. So the candidate who's going to win in 2026, regardless of party label, is the change candidate. Kamala Harris is literally the most implausible change candidate you could ever imagine. She's been around in California politics for decades, and she's done nothing of any note. Where is a single accomplishment in all her years? DA of San Francisco, Attorney General of California, Senator for California, Vice President and a disastrous presidential candidate. Not once in any of those years has she actually delivered anything of value to anybody in the real world. And so I don't think there's anything better that would help our chances more than for Kamala Harris to be the candidate. Plus, you'd get, I think, a lot of support right across the country from people who would love the chance to beat her again.
I love your pitch, and I think that you not being from California actually makes the pitch really resonate. Buck and I have talked about this. I didn't get to go visit the state of California until I think I was 21. I had a college roommate from there, went out and visited. Buck grew up in New York City. California was a shimmering city on a hill dream for a lot of people who live in many parts of the United States, and I bet also for kids like you growing up in England, growing up in Europe, that it was a place that people aspired to go. You can help to tell that story and bring it back. But when you travel the state, do you get that sense that there still is that desire to make California really epitomize and personify the American dream?
Oh, Clay, you're so right about that. In fact, there's a very specific example of what you're about. Back in the day, before, when I was working for David Cameron, he was the leader of the Conservative Party. I was his chief policy advisor. Before he became prime minister, the Spectator magazine, the print magazine in the UK, ran a cover story about the plans that we were developing, and the headline of the piece was "California Dreaming," and the theme of the article was Steve Hilton, David Cameron's policy guru. The plans they're developing are all about making the UK more like California. He's inspired by California. He thinks it's the best place in the world. Okay, this was 20 years ago. So, I mean, is there a single political advisor anywhere in the world who would want to make their country more like California today? Of course not. That shows how far badly off track we've gotten. But the point is there, exactly as you said. To me, California represents the ultimate expression of America. There's a phrase that I use the whole time. California means to America what America means to the world. So to me, California represents everything I love about this country. Ambition and energy and optimism and dynamism and startup hustle, and actually also the rebel spirit. The people who made it here to the West Coast and went through the Sierra Nevada and struggled through all those barriers to get here and build this amazing place that we have, as far as I'm concerned, the greatest place in the world, California. That's an amazing energy that we have, and it's been crushed by this ridiculous, bossy, bureaucratic, nanny state, bloated government. If we lift that off, there's nothing that we can't do in California. And I love that. I'm in love with California in a very, very serious way. And that's why I'm really determined to do this. If we can turn things around in California, it's not just going to be great for all of us here, it's going to be great for the whole country too.
Steve Hilton, where's your website for the campaign? Anybody who we have a lot of California listeners, such a big state. So
Thank you.
Great Republicans behind enemy lines there. Where do they go?
So SteveHiltonForGovernor.com, FOR, SteveHiltonForGovernor.com. We would love your support. We're up against a very big and well-funded Democrat machine, the government unions, of course. But I'd love people's time and energy as well. We're going to really build a grassroots movement, so you can get involved with us at the website, SteveHiltonForGovernor.com.
We'll be talking to you more, Steve. Good luck to you. Thanks for being here.
Fantastic. Great to see you. Thank you.
Preborn accomplishes in a year what pro-life organizations, many of them, are hoping to achieve in a lifetime. Last year alone, for example, Preborn made it possible for tens of thousands of babies in the womb to come into this world and have life. That only happens because of your donations and Preborn's dedication to the mission that you fund. The team working at Preborn is incredible when it comes to saving lives and helping pregnant women. Here's what they do. They give an ultrasound to that mom who's pregnant and wondering, what should she do? Life for her baby or abortion? Preborn says, just come to one of our clinics. It is totally free. You will be welcomed with open arms, and you will be given the gift of an ultrasound. That ultrasound costs just $28. So if you can donate $28 right now, you'd be helping to save a baby's life that is in jeopardy. If you can donate $2,800, that would be 100 ultrasounds. It's all tax deductible. Whatever you can spare, you the pro-life community. It's not enough to just vote. You have to take action. Save lives today. To donate securely, dial pound 250 and say the keyword baby. That's pound 250, say baby, or go to preborn.com/buck, preborn.com/BUCK. Sponsored by Preborn.